What's going on, guys? It's Oregon Motorcycle bringing you another awesome episode, coming to you straight out of Oregon City today. I am in one of my favorite parks here in Oregon City. In today's video, you guys, we're going to be talking about maintenance on the Talaria Sting. All right, folks, let's go for a ride and talk about it. So I had a couple requests on this video, you know, what kind of maintenance I do on my bike. And, you know, I like to tinker with my bikes, don't get me wrong, but I'm not, like, I don't follow maintenance like per schedule, so to speak. Like, for instance, on my CB500X, I think it says at 16,000 miles to check the valves or whatever, and I'm not doing that. I'm not going to do that until I start seeing any running issues with it running, like maybe hard starts or that kind of thing. But, you know, I do the maintenance that's required, and I really pay attention to maintenance that I think is really super important on particular bikes. Now, each bike is different. For instance, the first one we're going to talk about on this one, which I think is really important, that I think you guys should all be doing all the time, is the chain. I think the chain is super important on this bike, and I think at first in some of my other videos I may have said like, oh, you know, it's not really that big a deal, you know, the differences between the O-ring and versus non-O-ring. But I'm here to tell you guys, after watching more videos and getting more experience with these chains, like, first, right out of the gate, I would definitely get a non-O-ring chain if you guys have an electric bike, and then I would top it off with, you know, like extreme chain maintenance. So I try to clean my chain almost every ride, and I'm always checking the, you know, the slop in it or whatever. So you guys can run these chains a little bit tighter than a typical motorcycle, because the pivot point of the swing arm matches the output shaft, so they're all on the same angle there. Which is pretty cool. So you can run them a little bit tighter, but I'm not trying to do all this right now in like shorts and stuff, but whatever. So yeah, there's that, you know, and because I do chain maintenance all the time, I don't use any special lubes or anything on this chain. I just clean it with WD-40. WD-40 is a great cleaner, and it provides enough lube for your short, you know, say rides you're going to do. So if I put like 50 miles on it, even 100 miles, it's good. And in my personal experience with my motorcycles, WD-40 works great as a chain lube for about 150 to 200 miles. And that's with my experience. So remember, your results may vary. I just switched sprockets over, and I'm kind of scared to pull this up now but it's not near as sensitive though with the other sprocket. Anyways, bringing us to the next maintenance item or whatever is your tires, and that coincides with tire pressure, just I guess the overall maintenance of the bike. Because I'm going to tell you guys right now, if you guys buy one of these bikes, you're going to be replacing inner tubes and or patching the tubes. So I've gone through, I don't know, 4 or 5 inner tubes so far on this bike. I've ripped 2 or 3 valve stems off on the bike. So yeah, and that's with me just playing around with air pressures. I don't recommend riding this bike off-road hard with less than 20 pounds of pressure in it, because you guys are going to rip a valve stem off. But if you have wheel locks, you can get down to about 8. I've had good results with 8. But yeah, keep an eye on your tires and your tire pressure. Again, the tire pressure is going to go hand in hand with the way the bike performs. So the higher the pressure, the less rolling resistance. You guys will get a little more range out of the bike with proper tire pressure, right? I like to run 30 pounds when I'm street riding, and 30 pounds with these Shinko SR241s works great off-road. If I'm specifically going to do off-roading with these tire setups, I'll drop it down to 20. Whereas with off-roading, you're not really as concerned with range and that kind of thing. But if you're commuting, yeah, definitely start at 30 pounds and see where that gets you. Maybe if you're a little bit heavier person, you might go up to like 35. I weigh about 155-ish, maybe 160 on a good day. So yeah, that's where I like to run mine. And, you know, so going back to the maintenance part of this video, you guys should definitely invest in a patch kit, and always carry a couple extra tubes, and get the forks and spoons to do this, because you guys will be replacing tubes and tires on these bikes. It's just a matter of time. In fact, on my last ride, I went on the e-ride again in Portland. Oh, these are weak wheelies. I got to get this thing up. And I picked up a screw, and it like wasted the tire like instantly. And the good thing is we were done with the ride. Like, I was literally probably less than 100 yards from my car, and I was just going down like the last staircase of the day, and my buddy was like, oh man, it was like midnight in Portland, and he was like, oh man, your tire's flat. And I was like, yeah. So limped it back to the car. It was like a drywall screw right in the back tire. So it happens, it will happen. So just be aware of that. That's going to be some regular maintenance for you guys, is tire maintenance, and that goes all around for repairing, patching, and keeping the proper pressure in your tires. The next maintenance items, you guys, is the headset, and I did a video specifically on this problem I feel it's a problem because they're not properly packed. Now, if you guys don't know about packing bearings, please look that up, because a lot of people have this misconception about how much grease should be in a bearing. You need to physically pack the grease inside to the bearing and the cases and the races and everything. You just don't apply a little grease on the outside. And that's what they're doing in the factory. So I would perform this maintenance right out of the gate on this bike, and it will help the longevity of the bearing overall because it won't introduce the chance of rust. I actually got rust in my bearings. You guys know I put this bike through everything from mud, sand, salt water now, trails, dirt, dust, everything. So you need to pull the headset bearings out and pack them with grease, and just do a good job on it. Take your time. Then you probably won't have any issues for a long time. You know, I had it when I first got the bike. I'm over 1,000 miles now on the bike. It's just something you need to do. If you guys are interested in seeing that video, check it out. It's going to be somewhere up here in the top. I'll post a link. You guys can see how what my bearings look like and why. I mean, I actually felt my headset getting notchy, and I was actually taken off to go for a ride, and I couldn't even ride the bike because it was so notchy. It was unrideable. The bike was unrideable. So, all right, the next maintenance item, you guys, is really important too, in my opinion. All these are important, but this one's really important too because I'm kind of meticulous about this. I'm this way with my vehicles too, and that is washing. I know some of you guys like a dirty bike, and I do too. I like to keep my bike dirty sometimes, and sometimes I miss a car wash or two, but there's a lot more to washing than just getting a clean bike at the end. That's not only the end result you can get. When you're washing your bike, it's a physical inspection. So as you're washing, you want to be looking over like everything from your chain, checking your chain link, checking your brake pads, which we'll get into a little bit here in a minute. But checking, I mean, you can even do the tire inspection during that time, right? And you're looking for rust maybe in certain areas or certain spots that you could address. Or this is just a dead end. Might as well turn around. So, and not only is it important to keep the bike clean, the bike will look better. Just overall, it's better for the bike. So, for instance, I rode this bike at the beach this last week, and I literally got it covered in sand and salt water. And I let it wreaked havoc on the chain. The chain was not happy. But anyways, when I got home, I gave it a good detail, wash it with proper soap, use car wash soap, you guys, with some Simple Green. That's what I've been using lately, and it makes the bike look brand new. This bike has a weird powder coating on it, and it likes to attract, like, I ride up in Lottie Flats sometimes at the OHV park, and it's got like this clay material, and man, it just like embeds itself into the frame and like almost stains it along with the seat. But a good quality car wash will get rid of all that and really get it out. It's good soap, you know. And then I throw some Simple Green in there just because it's a, you know, another good degreaser or whatever. So yeah, bike maintenance, keep the bike clean, and just look at the bike, you know, stare at a lot of the stuff and the components. You guys will be surprised what you may find washing it, which brings us into the next one, which is nuts and bolts. And this is important on all motorcycles, really. You always want to check your nuts and bolts. So I had my riser headset that clamps the handlebars here. They came loose. I had to tighten them last week, and it was funny because I have this Pro Taper pad here. I can't visually inspect them all the time, right, unless I take this off. Well, I was moving the bike around. Actually, I was at work, and I was pushing it by the handlebars, and I heard the handlebars creak, and it was like, and I was, what the hell? So I went home, and man, they were really loose. I couldn't believe that this grit shift clamp was still holding the handlebars that tight with the bolts that loose. Oh, we want to go here. So it just goes to show, I mean, if I hadn't been paying attention to that or checking bolts or whatnot, then I could have been riding, maybe doing a jump or hitting some whoops, and then the handlebars fall forward or something that could have, you know, resulted in an accident. So always pay attention to your nuts and bolts on this bike, because I don't know if you guys see some of my original videos. I talked about how some of the bolts and nuts on this bike were kind of like loose, and some of them were over tightened. And in fact, we were in the same spot when I talked about that on that video. So we're right here by the Willamette Falls. Beautiful view up here. So there's even some rock crawling right here. I should get my gear on and come up here and try some of these rock crawling now that I'm more confident with this bike. So yeah, good old Oregon City, folks. Good old Oregon City. All right, cool. The GoPros are doing good today. Man, I've been having so many GoPro issues again. This one's still on, and this one's filming in 360, I hope. So anyways, and I had just polished all the lenses on this one out. I had some lens issues. I'm still having lens issues on this 360, so I might have to send it in. I don't know if you guys know anything about where I can send a GoPro Max in to get the lens replaced, post down in the comments, please, because I can't find anybody that does lens replacements, and it's pretty crazy on this camera. So, all right, guys, the next thing we're going to talk about, which is another very important part, and it's brakes. Now, for the most part, you guys, when you ride these bikes, and it's true with my other motorcycles, is, you know, they'll say in the manual, you know, you need to do brake inspections or whatever. Well, the only real way to do a brake inspection is to ride it and see how the brakes feel. And I mean, you can visually see the fluid, so always check those. But I mean, if there's a brake problem, you're usually going to experience it, you know, when you feel it. So if you're riding your bike and the brakes feel a little funky, it's probably best to go through and start looking at the brakes and trying to find the problem. And I mean, you know, in my experience, you guys, the brakes are very reliable. You just need to keep up on your brake pads. I've gone through a couple sets of brake pads on this bike, and I tried out some cheap ones and some expensive ones. I got the nice Shimano's up front, and they may grip a little bit better. But for the most part, you guys, I think these brakes are inadequate for the weight of the bike. Especially here in Oregon City, I have some really steep hills that I go down, and sometimes I hit the brakes and I'm just like, oh man, I wish there was just a little bit more. But, you know, it is what it is. So you need to make sure that your brakes are in tip-top condition, which means the rotors are clean and your brake pads are in adequate shape. And brake pads for this bike are pretty cheap, so you guys can experiment with them. I have some links posted down below in the description, some Amazon links to the brake pads that I have here. Just keep an eye on that, keep an eye on the fluid. There's probably some intervals where you guys need to change the fluid in these reservoirs, but hopefully you might be doing an upgrade before it's time to change the fluid in the reservoirs here in these little master cylinders or whatever they are. Yeah, just keep an eye on the brake pads. Again, if you're checking the nuts and bolts like we talked about before, your calipers won't come loose, okay, or the caliper mounts. So you want to make sure those are in good condition too. All right, guys, last but not least, the favorite part of this bike, everybody's favorite part of this bike, even the haters, the guys from the Surron lovers, the Surron fanboys, they love it too. They love it too.
But we have a gearbox, people.
Wait, what do we need a gearbox for?
And that is changing the oil in the gearbox.
You ever had dirt in your belts?
So it has oil in the gearbox?
Yes. And a drain plug.
So I have to change the oil?
Yep.
What I've been doing, I just did my third oil change, and because I just broke 1,000 miles. So what I'm doing is I'm changing the oil after the initial break-in or whatever. After the initial break-in, I just did the second one at 500. So from now on, just every 500 miles, it's easier to keep track of. I know the manual states like 600 and something miles, which is, it equates to 1,000 kilometers. But I'm an American and we use this stupid system, so I gotta keep it simple so I don't lose track. And so I'm just changing the oil every 500 miles. The oil changes on this bike, you guys, literally after you've done them a couple times, it's like a 5-minute job. So I swapped me some new gear oil in yesterday on this bike. All right, guys, that's gonna end this episode of Oregon Motorcycle. I'm gonna ride around and just enjoy this beautiful day out here in Oregon City. I'm just kind of putting around. I don't really have any gear on. So if you guys like this video, hit that like button, share it with people so they can get some knowledge. And like I said, there's been people asking about the maintenance on these bikes, and really there's not that much maintenance. It's just typical stuff like brakes, tires, and chain, right? I mean, that's kind of what we hit on, nuts and bolts, keeping it clean, washing it, right? I mean, it's literally a maintenance-free bike, as maintenance-free as you could get. And that's one of the things I love about this Talaria. I absolutely just in love with this bike. I can't stop riding it. And my 500X is kind of pissed at me right now, but whatever. That's the way it goes. Until next time, folks, Oregon Motorcycle.